Welcome, everybody. What a delight to have you here with us on yet another insightful edition of Breaking the Glass Ceiling, brought to you by the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance. My name is Joyce Daniels, and I'm your host for today's episode. And I have with me two of my sisters, fellow alum of the School of Politics, Policy, and Governance, SPPG. Anytime you hear us say SPPG, it is School of Politics, Policy, and Governance. I would bring them on stage and let them introduce themselves one after the other, tell us a little bit about themselves, and we will have this amazing conversation today about breaking the glass ceiling for us women in politics and governance. First up is Anita, and she is from the Pioneer Set class of 2021. Welcome, Anita.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. As you've said already, my name is Anita Jonathan Omonogun. I work as a missionary with the Nigeria Fellowship of Evangelical Students. I currently work from Abuja now, but I've been with the organization for like 6 years and counting. Basically, I work to groom these students in leadership and then mentor them in life generally. But basically, my passion, of course, is to see that more women come on board, especially in my own organization where it's majorly male dominated. Let me not ride into the conversation for the evening. I think I'll stop there. Thank you so much, Joyce, for having me.
Thank you, Anita. And also with us is Precious, who is from my set of the class of 2022. Hi, Precious. Welcome.
Hello, Joyce. So I am Precious Amayo. I'm a news anchor and journalist with TVC News. Of course, you should know TVC News. I think one of the things that the job allows me to do, it gives me the privilege of interacting with policymakers, with stakeholders, and that's the beauty of it. You get first-hand information on policies, and it's quite interesting for me. So basically, that's the much about me, I think.
Thank you so much. So we have different angles and perspectives to see things from today, and this is the beauty of Breaking the Glass Ceiling podcast. Our first question is about the elevation of women's concerns. I will throw the first question to Anita, and then Precious, I would change the angle for you just a little bit. Amidst this bustling political conversation that we constantly have, women's issues can sometimes be forgotten because we're talking about some other aspects of politics and governance. Now, this section, is it possible to share, Anita, an example of some specific women's concern that deserves more political attention? And how can spotlighting this particular issue or issues lead to more comprehensive and effective policies, in your opinion?
Now, I would like to go back and take a position that may not necessarily be popular, because when you think of women issue, or when I think of women issue, I think of, okay, let's have policies that would encourage women to run for office. Let's have policies that also give them a soft landing, let's incentivize some certain things to allow women to run in office. But for me, I think one of the best places we can start in getting women involved in politics is to get them educated. Now, we've heard a lot about this particular Pakistani lady, Malala, and the many things she has done. And all around us, there are replete examples of women who are doing so well and rubbing shoulders with their male counterparts in different sectors. I don't need to mention names. We know them. They are glaring examples. So for me, I think one of the basic things we can do for women is to pull them out of ignorance, and then we can even begin to talk of effective representation in politics, because we've had very, very sorry excuses or examples, sorry, of women in politics who made it to Speaker of the House, and who made it to, yeah, Speaker of the House, and had some offices, and there is nothing remarkable to bring out from their lives, right? But then we also have those who are doing very well, and so for me, leaning on those who have done so well, I think if we try to bring out the aspect of having a policy that goes into law and is really enforced, and we follow it up, and by following it up, I mean civil society groups following this up to the effect that we have girls mandated to go to school, I think we will solve half of the problems we are still talking about now. Right? I've lived in this northeastern part of Nigeria before, and I've seen that, well, there are a lot of, I lived in the state where Nigeria records, or should I say UNICEF, had um, the data as far back as 2020 that says the state, I won't mention the state, has the highest number of out of school children. And I've lived there, and to see the list, most of the vulnerable set of those people who are out of school are the girls. They hawk every day on the street. You see them on the street hawking. So for me, I think if we're going to have a good conversation around politics, let's start from education. Let's mandate education for the girls. Let's also incentivize education for the girls. We had this situation, I hope I'm not talking so much, but we had this situation in 2014 where those girls, the Chibok girls, were taken. And I know, not let me not say firsthand, but I've read and I've seen the impact it had on girls and children generally going to school in that part of the country. So if we can really start the conversation and bring back and make it very catchy, very attractive, and make it very safe for women, for girls rather, to go to school and start getting educated, then many of the things we're talking about in politics would be a walkover. If I just hope I didn't go too broad and wide to answer your question, because the summary of what I'm saying now is that let's have policies that mandate girls and also keep them safe when they're going to school. Let's have policies that make it easier for them, because the truth is that whether we like it or not, in this side of the world, the girl is vulnerable to a lot of things more than her male counterpart. I just hope that answered your question.
Thank you. You definitely did answer the question of what should we be looking at. And the truth is, some people may not have looked at it from this angle. Education should precede the conversation of politics. So thank you. Thank you very much. The question to Precious is about your platform for advocacy. Thankfully, you spoke to us about being on TV, and this is an amazing platform. It reaches a lot of people that cannot even be quantified, even though some statistics will show the numbers for your reach. So how can offering such a platform for discussing women's issues directly influence the development of policies that will cater to a wide range of needs for women? Is there any story, any success story that you might share of some dialogue that took place on your platform and then translated to tangible policy change?
Okay, so I just wanted to speak to what Anita said earlier. First of all, before I respond to you, Joyce, if I'm allowed, she talked
Please.
about having women as speaker who made a mess of the job. But I wanted to say that we've only had one woman as speaker in terms of House of Representatives, and there were trumped up charges. She was tried, removed from office, found not guilty, and never brought back. And so for every one woman we've had in office who messed up, they have been, and she didn't even mess up in the first place because she was found not guilty. So for every one woman who we have known, okay, this one messed up, there have been 10 men who did worse, because we have more men, and that's not because men are worse, it's just because we have more men in politics. And so I just wanted to say that, just to say, look, we have women who are doing really well in politics as much as we also have men who are doing well. So I think the more we talk about these issues, the more we gain attention. And if you this the women policy has, the issues around women, the gender policy has gained a lot of traction in the last 2 decades or the last decade. And that's because we've been talking about it. And that's because, we're not just talking about it in conferences and seminars. We've taken these conversations to TV stations, radio stations, even in the newsroom. Some newsroom now have a gender desk. Some newsroom, if you're talking about, it's almost mandatory now that, at least I will speak for TVC News, that when you go do your report and whatever, you have to find, I mean, when you're talking to women, you are talking to men, you also have to balance it and talk to women. So when you talk about those issues, you realize that, look, okay, someone is actually listening and things are being done. I remember this issue around, I think it was around the Constitution. There was a protest at the National Assembly. The more we had more women, at TV stations talking about this issue, in fact, mainstream TV stations took it upon themselves to ensure that, this issue was a main issue, a major issue on their morning shows, on their major bulletins. An issue that was, seemed, it's even while the former first lady was in National Assembly, nothing happened. But the more we talked about it, we realized that there was a turnaround, and it seems like, there was a bit of victory. It's not done yet. It's still a huge issue. But the more we talk about them, the more we take to TV stations, radio stations, newspaper to talk about them, you will realize that actually someone is listening because something will be done.
Something will be done because someone is listening. So we continue to speak. Thank you. Thank you, Precious. And that's why we have Breaking the Glass Ceiling podcast by the SPPG, to lend our voice to the issue, to be amongst those who are speaking until we see the kinds of changes, the kinds of improvements in policy that we desire. We continue to speak. Precious, I would ask you this question about any example that you could provide showing a policy that addresses women's rights and well-being that has had broader positive effects on the community. Because some of the persons listening to us right now might go, okay, so we have policies to address women's rights, and so what? How does it go beyond women? How can we continue to bridge the understanding between policies designed for women and the other far-reaching impact that it has on society?
So I think I would just mention the issues around leave, maternal leave, for women.
Okay.
When women, initially, most times women, it's still an issue. It's not there. We're not there yet, but now women are getting paid leave when they give birth. And so I think that has a broader impact on society. If a woman is allowed to leave and really take care of the child, even her own husband is at peace at home and is able to work. Yes, there are cases where women are still, you because you have given birth, you're asked not to return to work because you're taking too much time, on that leave. But I see that some other organizations, most organizations are now ensuring that once you give birth, at least your 3 months paid leave. And that's really helping. We're having a healthier society. Imagine a woman who is dealing with postpartum depression, after giving birth, and they're not being allowed to enjoy herself at home, and also the assurance that she has a job to come back to. Imagine the impact it will have on her, the child, the family, and then the husband goes back to work with that pressure, knowing that the wife is facing, depression back home. It also takes a toll on his productivity at work. And so imagine what the impact that has on that organization as well. So if we have more of those kind of policies, it's just one, and we're not there yet. But the more, it's just a reflection of how, when women issues are societal issues, women issues are family issues. The more you put these policies in place, it's just not for the women. And I think that's where we make the mistake. We think that, oh, women want to ensure their rights. But at the end of the day, you have a healthier home, you have a healthier, society. Everyone is okay, just because there is a balanced policy for both men and women.
Fantastic. A balanced policy. And I will say, shocking. I hadn't really looked at it from this point of view, that her health is cared for. So she's in a better place, and that affects the family. I, as a woman who speaks for women, I hadn't even thought about it in this regard. That's why we're having the conversation, to bring out those subtleties that will be overlooked, forgotten, or never even thought of until someone like you, Precious, who has had the conversation, who has seen the result, speak to this effects. Thank you so much. So my question to Anita would be, if you were to advise some policymaker who is watching this podcast right now or listening to it, or someone who can advise someone who is watching right now, how would you advise policymakers to strike this balance between addressing women specific concerns and ensuring that the benefits extend to everyone? Just taking a leap off what Precious said, are there any insights into exactly how strategies to help policymakers navigate this balance and do it effectively?
Okay, if I understand, we're looking out for a balance rather in a policy that supports women and at the same time also supports the men, right?
Yes, men, children, and other parts of
All
society,
right,
other
all right.
levels of inclusiveness or inclusion.
I think for me, first and foremost, the strategy will begin from an understanding of what the woman has to offer and also what the sanity and the working together of the unit, be it, the unit, the family unit has to offer. One of the first strategy as I tried to see from the beginning is to prioritize the unit that is the family unit now, where when a man is going to be transferred for work, the family unit can also be put into consideration. For instance, now, okay, let me now use where I work. Now, where I work is generally male dominated. I'm going to use where I work to purposely come up with a strategy. Now, it's basically male dominated, and I don't have the history as to why certain females who went through the organization wouldn't want to come on board to go to the field. Now, we call field work the instance where you are interfacing directly with the students on the campus. Now, yes, we have female working in the office, right, as administrative staff, not interfacing with students. But for a long time, when I came on board, out of about 60 staff members, we had only one female that was on the field interfacing with the students directly. Now, it was a bit of a concern for me, but I didn't really ask much question till I got into the field too and started working as a female. Then I saw the many things that could stand in the way of a female effectively doing that work. And the problem is that in our workplace, we move around. You could be in Sokoto today and you moved down to Plateau State. So as a male, it may be a little bit easy to just up and move, especially when you're not married. But for the female, if you are married and because somehow society has made it to be that you're answerable to your husband, if you're moving in that kind of instance, it sets a lot of unbalance. So I'm saying that if we're going to have strategies that would work, and leaning back still on my organization, because what they do now is that as a female on staff, when your husband moves, his work is independent of yours, but when he moves, you are moving with the person. So can we have policies too where if just as Precious mentioned, if we have, I think we've talked about this thing so much, if we have a policy where the woman takes a maternity leave of 3 months, the husband too can take a paternity leave of 3 months after the woman has taken. We can have a synergy where that is obtainable, right? And we can also have a place where I've been somewhere where I think it should be SPPG class where someone was talking about having an advocacy for raising and training men too. As much as we have policies supporting women to go into politics, to go into some certain kind of career choices and the rest, I think we can also have corresponding policies that will also give men who are possibly not able to meet up financially. I just really hope that I'm making sense. So I would say that if we're also going to have a good policy that works, let's say if we're saying For instance, you're getting into a tertiary institution, because I talked about education earlier. The girl child in northeastern part of Nigeria, and we're saying, for instance, the girl child, you're paying nothing for school fee, and you're going to have a uniform and everything. We can also have a corresponding policy that says the male child is also able to come to school, or at a discounted rate, maybe 30 or 50, where the female gets 100. I think I'll pause here. I hope that helps.
Indeed, it helps. Look this way, look this way. It's like when we're being taught how to cross the road, you say, look
Yeah.
left, look right,
Yeah.
and look left again. So look at women's issues. See how we can let it touch the men and
Very well.
other people in society, and come back to
Yes.
women and strike the balance. That's how I see what you said.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. So Precious, by all means, do tell in your conversations with experts and activists, are there any recurring issues that consistently affect women across various spheres? What have you noticed? What's the trend? Could you highlight one of these issues for the benefit of those of us who are watching and listening to learn and understand, especially how it intersects with other aspects of women's lives and how addressing this issue could lead to even broader positive outcomes? Earlier, Anita had spoken to education. So please, in your experience, what else are we missing?
So I think I will just highlight three of those issues and then focus on one of them.
Yes,
First
please.
of all, I would say that vulnerability in times of crisis is always women and children. And so when you look at IDP camps, you have more women, children in IDP camps because they're more vulnerable in times of crisis. And we haven't paid attention to when we're evacuating. We need to evacuate women first. I was speaking to someone who said she feels that, just generally around the world, not just even in Nigeria, that in times of there should be a policy, by maybe United Nations that evacuate women and children first, because a woman would not want to leave until we're more focused on, oh, my children. Women will worry. I think, because of the maternal instinct, we want everyone else to be worried, everyone else to be fine before we even think of ourselves. And so that's one issue. And I also think that issues around wealth gap, because when we talk about wealth gap, we say, oh, the upper class, the middle class, the lower class. We don't also look at it that wealth gap is there's also the gender wealth gap. So when you talk about the wealthy people around the world, you would mention a lot of men, and that's because of the advantages. Most women who have money now, yeah, worked for it, but some of them, maybe out of divorce or maybe out of inheritance. And so we also need to close that wealth gap, and that will help in campaign financing. And that's why I'm talking about it. When you look at how much politics go, I don't think women have that. And so perhaps why a lot of women will need to have godfathers who can sponsor their campaigns. Or when they start, they have to opt out and say, look, because you do not have the money to follow up. And we haven't gotten to a place in our politics where people will vote for you without incentives. We haven't gotten to that character competence thing yet. People still want to be incentivized before the election. And sometimes, it's even that bad that even during the election, people want to be incentivized. And so because of that, women lose out because they don't have the money that it takes, to pursue, their campaigns. And then you also look at issues around pay gaps. And some people don't believe that happens, but it does. Some companies will rather pay men more. Why? And it's a biological reason. Because as a woman, sometimes for women who really have painful menstrual cycle, you have to be off work, and so for them, they think that, look, in terms of productivity, you are not there. And when you also give birth, 3 months, you have to be away. Even when you come back, it's still not the same thing. You have to, your mind, you're running from one crutch to another to ensure that your baby's fine. You have to breastfeed, and so they also think that that's it chops off the productive hours, and so they'll rather say, okay, I'm just going to give this example. If someone was telling me on air, in fact, this was an interview, and she said a friend of ours gave birth. And that's what I was saying earlier, that we're not there yet. That a friend gave birth, during the leave, maternal leave, she got a call that she should not return to work. Why? They were tired of waiting and getting people to fill in for her, so they had gone on to hire someone else. And so the person they had was a male because they felt that, look, we won't have all of these issues. I don't blame the company. I don't also blame the woman because it's no fault of us. But I just feel like, this is one issue that we need to pay attention to and really follow through so that we do not have, there are women who just don't want to work because they want to focus on the children. That's fine. But for a woman who really wants to work, she shouldn't be, it shouldn't be difficult for her because of things that, she didn't put on herself. And so I think that that's one area we should continue to pay attention to, the pay gap. Um, if you're on the same level with someone, you should earn the same. If you're on the same, if you are due for the promotion, and if companies should wait based on who has more experience, who can do the job better, not out of, oh, one is male and the other is female, and we feel that you can do better. We won't have all of these issues even if she's better. So those are the issues, because if you have these issues are not resolved, you're going to have a situation where women are less productive, you know, just because she's a woman. And I'm so grateful for companies that have a lot of women on their board. I work in an organization that doesn't care whether you are male or female, so that works for me. I'm excited about that. But there are also other organizations where you have more women in the boardroom. That's becoming a good thing. But there are organizations where these things are still happening. And I think that, the labor union needs to pay more attention to this instead of the things that, they protest about all the time. It is a big issue that the pay gap, we should look at that and ensure that women are earning as much as, the men are also earning.
Yes, some people do struggle to believe that that's true, but it is painfully so. Question: are the women speaking up more? Do the women even know? Do we believe it's our right to earn equal pay? Or have we agreed that because we need to take uh, the maternity leaves and maybe we actually deserve to earn less? Have we been socialized to be subdued based on our biology and based on all those other factors?
I think that in some cases women know. So there are organizations where, people don't know what each other earn, except you ask someone else. It's not in their culture to be transparent because they don't want issues like this. But organizations where people know, and sometimes women are made to feel like, look, you're even privileged to be here.
To
So
be one of the few that is here.
yeah, so you shouldn't even make noise. Don't even talk at all. Just be
Agree.
grateful that you got the opportunity. And so they just rather stay silent.
I agree. Many times we're made to be grateful for the privilege of the tokens that are being thrown our way. But we will overcome by having conversations like this. So, Anita, I would ask guidance. We need guidance for those who are interested in being part of the political class. How can they effectively prioritize the pressing issues of women whilst ensuring that policies are comprehensive and impactful? I know you've touched on this a little bit. Now we're speaking specifically to those who want to go into the political class. Is there any example whatsoever of a policy approach that successfully addresses multiple aspects of women's well-being? If you have one, please share with us.
Okay, I think I tried to make an inference with my organization where I work,
Yes.
because that's basically where I have been exposed to some policies that somehow have not been slighting women and making work very hard. And I would also want to go back to the line of my organization, because when I was reading Aisha Osori, I hope I got her surname very well, Love Does Not Win Election, and found out a lot of the glitches that we had or we still have in Nigeria has a lot of, what should I say, we have a lot of beautiful policies around helping women to come into to politics, encouraging women to come into politics. I think one of the stories I remember her saying was the fact that I think on paper it's that women do not they get their forms when they want to contest, they get their forms for free. But at the end of the day, it got a lot of money for her. to get the form. So somehow some policies are on paper and they are not actively being done. But for me, one of the things that I've seen work in my organization, and I also believe strongly that if we're able to embrace it, it's going to really help, is to have an open door strategy where we converse with these people with the purest of intentions to really hear and do what they really what would really be of benefit to them. For instance, in my organization, I know what happens is, I was trying to make earlier a reference to the fact that it's a male dominated organization. It still is a male dominated organization. I said earlier that when I came on staff, I was at that moment, I think I was the second female after a long while, the second female going to the field. That's what I mean, But then after me, there are a lot of people that have been coming. And so far, though the expectation is the same, and I can bet you that we are up to the task. We are performing even more, if I must say, some of our male counterparts, is just knowing what to do and we're about it. So I think one of the things I've seen my organization does, and I think what we can do, is just have that open door policy. What we have now in my organization is the fact that when you're moving, because it affects, mostly for me, it affects movement, like you need to move with a spouse or something, you sit down, you're expected to just be open to management. You're expected to say what it is you need from management, and then management would sit and get back to you with something that would suit, maybe not what you are expecting, but something along the lines of allowing you to do your work very well. So I think if we have something like that, like the political space is actually very broad. So I don't see where this could work. But I think if we have people having policy, would be the political parties now having policies that would be very helpful to women if they're coming into policy. So if we are going to have that in place in our political parties, because they are the platforms that project these women, they are the platforms that would make a difference for these women. They can't, I don't think any independent person running for office stands a great chance now without a political party. So I would say that if our political parties now would be open to things, discourse like that, just an open door, and to sincerely project women in that regard, it would be very helpful.
Thank you. I do agree with the narrowing in, zooming in on the political parties, because they are really the machinery for churning out the politicians. So we all come into the funnel with our interests, and the political parties go through the rigors of primaries and more. And the policies within the parties will, to a large extent, determine a lot for whether we're able to push up more women or not. And I think this would very well lead into the question for Precious. If we're going to integrate women's issues into the political agenda, we will definitely encounter resistance. We will face complexities. Some of the political parties will push back and say, after all, we've given you free forms. What are some common challenges that political leaders might face when advocating for these issues? And how can we navigate? How can they navigate these obstacles without compromising the commitment to gender equality and equity? And I'm being careful of the language, because I know some people are very concerned about whether it's equity or equality.
Equality, yes. So I think that the first thing is that, till this very day, there are people who believe that a woman's place has to be at home and in the kitchen, and you shouldn't aspire to more. And it's shocking because, you would think that we have more people who know better. But when you check social media, and that's the part where I'm really shocked. When I check social media, which should be like a hub for people who, at least, if you can use it, you should have a bit of intelligence. But some of the remarks that I see are quite shocking. When someone says, oh, what is she even doing there? She should be at home doing this. I'm like, wow. Thank God for that you are not this person's husband. I'm sure you would never allow her to walk or even get to where she has gotten to. And so, you see that that's still one of the challenges that one is bound to face. Just people who feel like, look, people don't understand that when the Bible says a woman is be submissive to your own husband, that it is your own husband. I think that is interpreted to mean that it has to be every man, and it's not meant to be so. It's just supposed to be to your own husband. But we have now taken that to be that as long as you're a woman, you should be submissive to every man you meet, and which is so wrong. And so in politics, that's something that women are also going to face, the idea that you should be subservient. I also mentioned the idea of money, because really politics is also about what do you bring to the table. And for a lot of people, it's more of women don't have. So it's either you have the grassroots value, which means that you have people, or you have the nuisance value, which means that you can make noise. But or you have the financial value, which means that you can bring money to the table. But for a lot of women, you find that how many women want to be nuisance, and just keep making noise? We even found out those kind of things. I mentioned the wealth gap. We don't have that yet. So I think that our entrance has to then, because I really don't want us to see the challenges. I think our entrance then has to be, what can we bring to the table in terms of, if it's people, if it's campaign policies, how can we drive this? How can we be there? I remember, I think it's the now Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Better Edu. And when she got her appointment, I wasn't really surprised. I said, look, she was in every state. She's the woman leader for a political party. She went with her presidential candidate to every state. She was there. She was really, really there. And so when she got that appointment, I said, well deserved, because she served, she was there. And so I think that women will also have to be there. You have to, if you can be there, be there. You can't wait for it to, someone is not going to come and call you from your house and say, come and take. You have to show up and be there. You have to, put yourself out there, whether, as somebody who is good with policies or somebody who is good with politics. And so if we continue to see those challenges, we're not going to present ourselves. And I think, we have to look beyond those challenges and present ourselves just as the men are presenting themselves.
Present ourselves as the men are presenting. I like that example that you used. It was, I think I had the same sentiments exactly. And I used it to mirror myself and say, Joyce, are you showing up? Are you really showing up? So that someone might say, well, she's showing up, and she's not just showing up for nuisance value. She's showing up for capacity value. I like that. And I think we all need a little bit of both capacity and noise making, so that there is that balance. Because it's one of the challenges women have, where when we have capacity, we tend not to make some noise. We just want to walk behind the scenes and, well, let my work speak for me. And then that's part of the challenge. Have the capacity and have some noise value as well. Thank you so much, Precious. Final questions for today's episode. And those of us who are watching, who are listening, please drop the comments. Share this podcast with your friends, your family, people should listen to this, people should be enlightened. Share with your sons, share with your daughters, share with your male and female colleagues. Share with people who are not yet interested in politics and governance, because sometimes the interest is out of a lack of knowledge. And the more people know, the more we know, the more we tend to apply ourselves to making things better. So please share, even right now as we jump into our final set of questions. Final question would be, we would ask the same question to hear balanced ideas and thoughts from both Anita and Precious. Whilst we are here promoting gender equity through policy, what strategies have you found or will you recommend to be useful in building coalitions for garnering support, overcoming potential pushback from stakeholders who might or who will resist change? If there are examples of how perseverance and strategic navigation can lead to positive outcome despite initial challenges, please, by all means, share. We'll ask Anita to go first and then Precious to add her own views to it.
For me, I think it will start with women, right? I think it will start with women. Women supporting women is one. It sounds like a cliche, but it's something that has to definitely work, you know. And for the women themselves, we have to work on building ourselves to start with. Now I'm going to share. Okay, for me, it's not about me today, but I think my story and my journey in my organization has also made me to see how much power a woman can garner for herself if she believes in herself. Right now, for me, coming into the work I came into, when I wrote the application to come on board, and I came in for training, and we were told that there are vacant places around the country where we could be pushed to work. And we're having this conversation with a friend who is from the West, and he told me, Anita, don't worry, you're not going to be sent to the Northeast. And what was his reason? His reason was that in the North, the Northern people do not respect women, and they do not appreciate women for whatever they do, right? Now, when he said that, that was the sound that was playing in my head. And eventually, I was sent to the exact place he told me I wouldn't be sent to. So when I got there, the record that was playing in my head was the fact that these people do not appreciate women, and these people do not appreciate whatever work women do. So that was the thought that was in my head. Now, fast forward to when I went back again to get another training from my same organization. I met someone who told me, because I belong to a faith-based organization, of course, the conversation was around faith. And he told me, Anita, how has been your work so far? When I started to tell him, he was like, just know this thing, right? That the Holy Spirit has no gender. So whatever it is that is holy to you, if you're listening to me, I strongly believe too that that which is holy to you doesn't have a gender. So that was the new voice that was in my head. And 5 years later, I could tell you for a fact, deep to feel. They don't know who will fill that shoe. I left a big shoe to fill. I don't know. So I think one of the first strategy is, as I said earlier, when we started, I talked about education, right? So I think one of the first strategy is educating the girl child, and platforms like this, with content like this, and with all that we've been saying, is a great way for educating, women in knowing who they are first, in understanding and in coming to agreement with who they are, so they bring out the best in who they are. So I think one of the best thing, as I said earlier, is education, and also giving a listening ear to these women. I don't know, I've made that point already, but when Precious was talking, she said some of us would not believe it, that some certain things are still in place in some organization. So I think one of the great strategies is to sit down and actually listen. One of the problems we have is that we have men making, is an age-old line, but we have men making policies for women. How does that work? How does that address the real problem at hand? So one of the things is, let women tackle women issues. Let women tackle women issues. And then the last point I will make is that let there be a strong support, a strong coalition for women too, where we look at each other and we give support for each other. I don't know if we have an organization or coalition of women where anyone who wants to, or who is running a company, you get the support that you need. If you're running for office, you get the support that you need from that same pool of people, not a cult, of course, but just a pool of people coming together. As I made a reference earlier, Aisha and Precious said something to that effect. Funding is a lot of problem for women in politics. So if we would have a group of people, who are strategizing together, who are just solidly behind this lady, who are solidly behind her, ensuring that, okay, whatever it is you're trying to do, we are behind you financially. If we have that, I think a lot is going to change. But unfortunately, I don't think I know of any of such coalition, of any of such coming together of women. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Perhaps the School of Politics, Policy and Governance Alum Association would step in some sort of way to see how we can put this coalition of funders together, at least on our own level. Someone said recently, she even gave it a name. She called it Women in Politics Rescue Fund. I was like, whoosh, what are we being rescued from? She said, we're being rescued from lack of money.
Oh,
We're
it's a
being
lot.
rescued from
Yeah,
standing
it's a lot.
alone. We're being rescued from having to run by ourselves. We're being embraced into the space of us supporting ourselves. And she agreed with you. She said we should, that coalition should be led by women who understand some of the deeper
Yeah.
issues, but we must carefully, intentionally attract many men to the cause so that it doesn't now create another kind of problem. Precious,
Yeah.
what are your angles to this conversation?
So for me, it's more of communicate, confront, cancel, and collaborate. So communicate, because sometimes we assume that these issues are known. Sometimes I was talking to someone did something to me recently, and I said, "Oh, that's harassment." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And I realized that it wasn't a really of arrogance, like what are you saying? It was a really of, "Oh, I didn't know that," and so we spent time talking. Well, like, "Oh, so sorry, I didn't know. I just felt it's something I'm used to." I said, "Yeah, but there are people who." There are people who are comfortable with that, people who are not comfortable with that, you have to take permission. And you were like, "Oh, well, that's fine." And I felt good that, okay, that was communication. So we have to communicate. There are other issues where we have to confront because, in some cases, there are people who stand in the way just because that's how things have been done for ages. And so we know that there is an issue, but we just won't give way because we don't want to change this particular culture. And so in those kind of situations, you have to confront. And then there is also the collaborate. So you already started touching on that, and not just collaborating with women, collaborating with governments. I think what we do most times is that we complain and we criticize, but we never collaborate. You can't keep pointing fingers as a governor, for example, and say that state, they have not, enacted so and so law. Only 5 states have done that. What have you done? Have you gone to see the governor? Have you gone to see the SSG? Have you gone to see the first lady to let them know this is the importance of this particular policy for your state? It is not just important for women, it is important for your state. If your state needs it. And the more you make them understand why they should collaborate, the more you will have, more partners. And I like that you said, men have to be brought in because they're not enemies. Things have been done a certain way for a really long time, and it looks like the norm. Some of these issues are even religious. And so you see that is a lot to deal with. And so we have to keep collaborating and ensuring that even men who believe in our cause are also, at the forefront, because when a man speaks to a man, it's easier. Then the last one I said, I think it was cancel. It's not, we can't always criticize, we also have to cancel. There are people who really do not understand these issues. We have to take the time to listen and be patient, and just explain that this is why things should change. And so if we decide to, communicate, if we decide to confront, if we decide to collaborate and counsel, I think that, that will work. It's going to take years. We've made some significant progress, but we have to continue to push, through all of these strategies as when necessary.
We continue to push and push. We shall. I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Precious, for making it. Anita, I am so grateful on behalf of the rest of us at SPPG who are making this happen. Thank you for making the time. Thank you for sharing of yourselves and your insight. It's our desire that as a community, we'll continue to communicate, confront the issues, collaborate to make sure we are working together to create solutions, and of course, give counsel and receive counsel where necessary. I've just taken that leaf from Precious. To all our listeners and viewers, thank you for being here with us on this episode. And from all of us here today, we say bye for now.